So welcome to the Focus 3 podcast. I'm Tim Kight, the CEO and founder of Focus 3. In this episode, I have a wonderful conversation with Cori, who's the head coach of UCLA women's basketball. You're really going to enjoy this podcast. Cori and I talk about, among other things, her experience of being mentored by Coach John Wooden. And Cori had the opportunity to coach, obviously, at UCLA and then became head coach there. And during that period of time, she met regularly with Coach Wooden and learned a great deal about what does it mean to be an exceptional leader, and how do you develop your philosophy as a coach, how do you stay true to yourself and be authentic, the importance of teaching, motivating, building an environment, and again, being authentic. This is a powerful, powerful conversation about leadership and coaching. Let's get to work. We're still in the midst of COVID-19 social distancing, but I have as a guest today Cori, coach of the UCLA women's basketball. And we actually couldn't get together probably today because you're in Los Angeles and I'm in Columbus. And how awesome is it we can do this by Zoom? So Cori, welcome to the Focus 3 podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm an R-Factor disciple and just an appreciative friend of yours. And so it is really great to be with you.
Yep. So this is the technology is awesome. I kind of feel like we're right next door, and that's really where do you live, by the way, in the LA area? Where's your house?
Well, I live in Bel Air, which really close to UCLA, which I'm really, really fortunate. So I'm about 5-minute drive from UCLA, and so there's no traffic anywhere right now. But normally I'm really lucky that I don't have to battle traffic, and I'm close by.
When I was a student athlete at UCLA, ran track there. In the off season, every Tuesday and Thursday, we would run Sunset Boulevard, a grass strip on Sunset Boulevard, a little over 800 meters of a gradual upgrade right along Sunset Boulevard, right by Bel Air. So when you say UCLA, Bel Air, my mind goes back to running Tuesdays and Thursdays. I don't know if the team still does that or not, but we did that on our off-season workouts.
I don't think the team does it exactly, but there's another hill that they do that leads up perpendicular to Sunset. But there's a lot of people. There's still that little grassy knoll, and a lot of people they call it the loop around UCLA, and people still do that. So probably not as fast as you did, but close second. Right.
Yeah, there you go. So Cori, knowing you like I do, I'm fascinated by everyone's journey. I'm fascinated by the arc that each of us has in our life and what's brought us to where we are. Go back, if you would. What led you to, number one, be a competitive basketball player? And then what led you to be a coach?
Well, it's interesting. I sort of, this is probably why I love your podcast so much and why I've been drawn to what you do, is that my dad was a teacher, high school and coach, but I really see myself first as a teacher. I really love sports, so obviously I'm a coach, but I'm also sort of have an entrepreneurial mind. I like vision and building things and how can we compete in a business sort of standpoint. And so I've just been able to apply so many things from your teachings to that journey. But, I was the daughter of a teacher and coach and growing up, and I was really influenced by coaches. I really was a better soccer player than I was basketball player growing up, but
Did you grow up in California? You grew up in California?
Northern California, the Bay Area. And so, but there weren't very many scholarships available for women at that time in soccer. So I was close enough that I pursued basketball because there was more scholarship opportunities and I wouldn't have been able to pay for college otherwise. And so went and played basketball at UC Santa Barbara, and played for a brilliant man, Mark French, who really applied sort of the habits of excellence. He was really a Stephen Covey guy, and he was always talking about that basketball or sports was a microcosm and an opportunity to prepare for life. And I think that it deeply impacted me. It impacted my habits, it impacted my relationships, and it obviously impacted my performance as a player. And so then, when I'm done playing, I have this unbelievable opportunity to go to UCLA in what they call a restricted earnings position that doesn't exist anymore. The NCAA it was considered unconstitutional. But I was the restricted earnings coach at UCLA, along with Steve Lavin on the men's side. And one day he took me to meet John Wooden, which I know was a big influencer for you as well. And I went up to Encino and went to his apartment on a Tuesday night. My first year was 1993. I still remember. And I went back every other Tuesday for about 10 years after that. Wow. And was mentored by him for over 15 years. And it just was so impactful. And even going into coaching at UCLA, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a college coach, but I think really from
so was it, if I might, so was it the love for basketball, love for sports and competition that pulled you in? I mean, what was it that, if you weren't sure about coaching, so what was it about taking that role, taking that position?
But I was sure about impacting.
Okay, got it.
And I could see that this was a really amazing opportunity to influence, impact, and serve people. Okay. And mostly because my heart in life had been impacted so much. So I wasn't sure what exact expression I was going to use to impact people and to serve others. But as the more I got into coaching, I thought this is a really good fit.
What I know I've talked about this, and anytime someone brings up meeting John Wooden and spending any time with him, let alone as long as you did, people are going to ask, and the question, what top 3 or 4 things did you learn from Coach Wooden in your interaction with him over that time?
I think, there's so many. It's always, I answer this always a little bit differently every time. And it's sort of as the memories flood back to me of what's impacted me. But I think one big one is that simplicity is almost always best. I have all these memories of bringing these complicated questions to him that I thought were complicated, right? If you were, a head coach, what would you do? And, I think that he always had this amazing way of taking what I thought was a complicated question and really breaking it down to a simplistic choice. Mm-hmm. And so I would say number one is how much clarity he had in the simple things. Mm-hmm. And number 2, I would say that it was just never about him. It was always about others. And he has a great quote that the definition of a perfect day is giving to somebody else without any expectation of anything in return. And he lived that. He really had a lot of perfect days that he just gave to other people with no expectation. There was nothing transactional about it. And he didn't really talk about that with me as much, but I just watched him live that. And so that was just a tremendous thing for me to see. And it just made me that's one of the reasons that we have one of our core values is being a lifestyle giver. I want everybody to leave our program understanding how they're meant to have their impact on the world. What is their service legacy going to be, and help them discover that. But Coach Wooden was just so amazing in that way. And I think the last one that comes to my mind today is the fact that he was so consistently principled centered. So I know I'm guilty of having my emotions maybe steer me one way, or being reactionary in one way, or whatever. And I think you would say, that he lived out of discipline over default at a high percentage of the time. And I just could see what he would say, that the principles he lived his life by were so consistent. Yeah. And whether it worked out, didn't change it. Whether it, he was sad, didn't change it. And he talked a lot about when his wife passed, that he was really depressed for close to a decade. And it was really a big battle for him. But I never would have known that by the way he lived out of his principles. So I think that's such a life challenge. And I'm still a work in progress. But those are the big 3 that come to mind today.
A couple of things you've said already that I want to press on a bit. Staying with Coach Wooden for a moment, this whole notion of being a giver rather than a taker. We live in a world where there's a lot of takers. I mean, mm-hmm. It's disheartening when you see the manipulators, and it's even more disheartening when you're around someone who acts like a giver when in fact they're a taker. So there are those out there that they're good at pseudo giving, right? They have a veneer. You've got these folks.
Yeah, like fake hustle.
Yeah, that's what. There you go. Mm-hmm. But Coach Wooden, for sure, that's part of my experience with him was I didn't play basketball. There was nothing in it for him to interact with me when I was in school. But the times that we did were because he just wanted to give. And when he saw that I had an interest in leadership, or I had an interest in team building, I had an interest in where's the elite performance come from, and and then he could see that, and he fed that. He was a giver. And knowing you, that's who the first thing that I thought about from our first was lunch we had together in Westwood.
Yeah.
We connected on social media and back and forth on a few things. And I forget exactly how it first happened. I think maybe somebody who knew about us had mentioned to you, hey, reach out to Tim Kight via Twitter, and you did. And then I said, oh, cool. And I reached back out to you and said, oh, by the way, I'm a former Bruin, and that's awesome. And I get to, and we sat down for lunch one day, and which was really, I was there in business, and that was great. And I remember that one of the first things that I thought about you, my first impression with you was exactly what you're saying here. Two things. That woman is a teacher, and that woman's a giver. That's what that was my first impression of you. That you want to teach people, and you want to help, you want to serve, you want to have an impact. It just came across loud and clear. So that's what you're saying really drove you from the beginning?
Yeah, I think it did drive me from the beginning, and it's always humbling. I thank you for saying that. It's encouraging because I know that I'm broken, and I'm a work in progress, and that was another thing Coach Woodman talked about all the time, is being a lifelong learner, so, but I, that is the desire of my heart, is to look for ways, to quest for ways to make other lives better, and to teach and to influence and impact. And so that is my heartbeat. And that's definitely what drove me into coaching and sort of brought me to this place. And it's what stimulates me to this day. How can I give more effectively? How can I teach a little bit better? I mean, before we started recording this call, I was asking you, like, okay, help me be a better teacher of our staff, and help me use this COVID situation to be a better leader. And it's fun for me. I don't want to make it seem like it's so altruistic. I get tons of purpose and meaning from living in that way. But it's definitely the driving force behind what I want to become.
So I think it's so fascinating to me that you had this drive, you had this desire to have an impact. You weren't sure how to do it. This opportunity came up at UCLA, and you took it, and then you got to meet Coach Wooden. And then as you meet him, he is reinforcing in you, because he's a teacher, he's a giver, he's a shaper of people. And you're getting this reinforcement from the legend himself. I just think that's there's the serendipitous alignment or providential alignment of two arcs, right? And two journeys and then of course having the opportunity at some point for you to, and I know you went from other places, but then to come back to UCLA. And be the head coach of the women's basketball team. What an unbelievable opportunity for you.
Well, the year after he passed away too, which is interesting. And one of the other lessons that he taught me so much that was very impactful at that moment, I remember talking about it at the press conference, and just tears just started coming down my face at my press conference, accepting the job at UCLA, was I would ask him, what should I do if I'm a head coach? I would ask that question all the time. And he would say, that shouldn't be your question. It's the wrong question. He said, you are uniquely gifted to do it the way you're wired to do it, not the way I was wired to do it. So, decide on, let's learn from each other's principles. Let's talk through best practices. Let's do those things. But you are uniquely gifted just the way you are to build a program in the way that you're uniquely designed to do.
Wow. So you have to know you.
Right. I had to be self-aware. I had to be confident in the gifts that I'd been given. I didn't try. He didn't want me to try to squeeze my giftings into what I saw and learned from him in terms of personality, in terms of style, maybe in principle, maybe in, tactics in some ways, but not in terms of, I want to go be him. I needed to be the elite, the best version of Cori, as I've been taught by you. And and I think that was so amazingly freeing, because I remember thinking, I don't want to let him down. All that time he spent with me, this is my opportunity to pay it forward. And I didn't want to let him down, but that wouldn't be how he'd want me to think. And when I remembered what he taught me, it was a very freeing thing, that the best way I could say thank you for what he gave to me is to live out of my own giftedness and to master my craft in the way that I was designed to do it.
So in many regards, I know this word's tossed around a lot. Of these two words is be authentic or be real, but that's what you're describing, yes?
Yeah, I don't want to be trying to be someone else. I wanted to be the real best version of myself. And I think I'm continually discovering that. I don't think you arrive there, but that's part of the joy and stimulation as well.
Okay, so there we go. There's a moment right there that I want to pull hard on that thread, because I don't. How did you go about? I don't think people go on this inner journey enough. I don't think people go on this journey of self-discovery enough. And you just opened that door, and I want to walk into that room. How does one do that? How does one discover who they are? And let's talk coaching or leadership, whether it's a leadership in a business or a bank or a hospital, or your assistant coach or a head coach at whatever level. How does one discover who they are, Cori? That's a hard question. I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, I think, there's a couple things. One is ask a lot of questions of the people around you. When am I at my best, and when do I get off track? I think really surrounding yourself with truth tellers and being able to ask them those questions and let them give you a window into your wiring. I think we're all wired a little bit differently. And I think, when I'm at my best, and that was really, one of the things that motivated me as I was an assistant coach for 18 years before I became a head coach. And, you can think about this in business or in education. But as I moved, I don't want to say up, because I really don't, I think we're all just doing different things. But as I moved into a different chair of leadership, I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to hire to my weaknesses and lead to my strengths? Well, if that's going to be the case, then I need to be aware of what those are. I think that doing self-evaluation, having a system in which you force yourself to evaluate yourself and be introspective on a consistent basis, whether it be annually, quarterly, and you build in systems that you force you to pause in that. I mean, it's interesting in COVID. I think this is one of the potential silver linings is maybe a better opportunity to pause, a better opportunity to do that, to think about that. I do a really simple thing every morning. I am completely silent, nothing, no music, nothing. I sit outside on my deck and I am silent for 7 minutes. And it is hard. I'm a little bit ADD. I like to get going. And that's just a discipline for me to just build awareness of my surroundings, awareness of my own heart, awareness of, and wanting to set my mind every day. And
I wanted to mention that as you're being in athletics, like we are, and I think business is the same way. Leaders tend to be super active. They stand super proactive. They're really, really busy, and they feel like if I'm not doing something, if I'm not pushing, going hard, that I'm falling behind. You're saying, and I agree with you, by the way, you're saying solitude and silence on a regular basis and self-reflecting is a valuable tool in your journey to greatness.
I would use the word essential. I just don't, and believe me, you talk about those leaderships of having to go. I battle that every day. And that's why I start my day that way, because I do struggle with that. My default is go. If I'm not doing something I can check off my list, it's not good enough. And that's my default mode. And that's where I would go back to, left to my flesh. And, and so I think if I want to build principled, centered, disciplined thinking and disciplined behavior, then that pause in solitude and silence is totally out of my normal thing, but it has been absolute game changer for me in leadership.
So you said two things then about this journey of self-discovery. You said, number one, not necessarily in order, but one, you need input from people on the outside. You called it truth tellers, and I've long said we all need noticer and a truth teller in our life. People that we have authorized to say, would you please pay attention to me and notice what I'm doing and be a truth teller into my life. Speak truth in it. Tell me what you see. Tell me how, because we have blind spots. And the worst thing is we're blind to our blind spots. We don't even always know what we don't know. So this feedback is essential. Then the second thing that you said is solitude and silence, a pattern, a rhythm, a cadence of getting alone with yourself, being silent and getting introspective and think. And prayer is a part of it for you as well. Yes.
Yes, it is for me. It's a huge part of it.
It is for me as well. So it's being quiet, it's self-reflecting and thinking about what is it people have told me, what is it my truth tellers have said, and then thinking about yourself. What do you believe? What are your standards? I think that's incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable.
And just, you talked about cadence. So, this has been something that's been evolving in me. But one of the things that for me is I write in my journal pretty much every morning, 10 things I'm thankful for, 10 truths I know to be applicable to my life, 10 requests, I call them circles, that I'm drawing circles of requests, and then 10 character things that I want to be building into my heart, and things that I'm trying to either be self-aware about or things I want to grow on. And it's prayer for me. But I even think a person that's not of faith, that it's a great exercise.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just, discipline for me. I it's an intimacy thing with God for me. But I think that, one of the things that's been so huge for me in that is I used to think, we use that word mindset all the time. And I really believe you have to reset your mind every day. It doesn't, I use the phrase, it's not mind maybe, it's not mind hope, it's not, mind sometimes, it's mindset. Like, you got to do it and you can't carry it over. And so we got to reset every single day. And that's been a cadence for me that has been really helpful. I have my 7 minutes of silence. I write those things in my journal, and it doesn't take very long once you build that awareness. But that's one of the ways I build awareness and introspection is that cadence and discipline of reminding myself every day. And another thing I say all the time is that we're going to forget. You talk about it in sports. We're going to lose focus. The key factor is the speed and the awareness of refocusing, right? Well, this is a way I refocus or set my mind every day. And because I do forget, I do need to be reminded. I love, even in my relationship with God, that he already knows I'm going to forget. He says, remember what you forgot. It's the whole book of Deuteronomy. Remember what you forgot. But then he asks us to be disciplined to remember on a continual basis. And that's my cadence every morning.
We've got so many of these seeds that have been planted. I want to talk about all of this. So a couple of things that I want to run by you and respond to what you said and go back just a bit. Coach Wooden and you, and this desire to have an impact on student athletes and people around you. And my observation as I've worked with coaches around the country, I've noticed something. I've noticed that student athletes experience what you coach, they experience how you coach, and they experience why you coach. Mm-hmm. And the what is they experience the content of your coaching, the how is they experience your methodology of teaching and coaching, and then the why is they experience your purpose. And my observation has been, and I've done all these clinics and go all these places, that a lot of coaches just never really think about their why. They're not as nearly as, they spend a lot more time on X's and O's and drills and skills than they do on the why. It's the what and the how, but they don't spend as much time on the why. And I think that's a missing piece in the whole coaching profession, because the why drives the what and the how. Would you agree with that statement?
I would totally agree. And there's this other misconception in coaching, is that you're really not that good a coach if you spend the time on the why. Like, you're missing a step. Like, that's like your kumbaya, like wimpy version of coaching. And, it's so interesting because that's such a lie. And Coach Wooden, all he ever did was, he always said, I'd only focus on coaching young men's hearts. That's all he talked about, coaching young men's hearts. And then he said, well, their pivot foot and their jump shot are just an avenue, a tool for me to coach their hearts.
I love it.
Well, that was his why, but it sure didn't slow down his winning. Now, did it? And that's like, if you really love their hearts, you don't let them settle. If you truly love them unconditionally, you push them to the edge. So that expression of love, we got it all backwards. Love isn't a feeling, love is a commitment, and just coaching. And if you really coach people's hearts and know your why, man, that fuels performance and habits and disciplines and behaviors that really lead to a whole lot of wins too. And I think he's the best example of that.
Yes, that is so much. I mean, and you know me, so this is exactly what I believe in and exactly what I'm striving to do myself and teach to others. And what comes from the heart touches the heart. Mm-hmm. And that's why the why matters. And then also, if you're a deeply purpose-driven coach, you will, in fact, develop the what and the how in a meaningful fashion. And it's so interesting to see that whether or not to observe and watch whether or not the coaches know it. The kids are experiencing the coaches what, the coaches how, and the coaches why. I wish, and also this, I think slowing down speeds you up. What a coach wouldn't say all the time: be quick,
but don't hurry.
You know, so if you slow down and get clarity, like I'm going to guess, the cadence of your silence and solitude every morning actually speeds up your day.
Yeah, I would call it the multiplier.
I love it.
So it is truly the slowing down and the pausing actually ends up being the multiplier. But, you know, and you're right. I mean, I think Coach Wooden, obviously, you know, because his standard of excellence was so high, he's such a great barometer to go back to and an example of that. But that's one of the reasons I love doing things like this. And this is why I really sought you out to teach me and to mold my thinking and to help me create a system of thinking that could help me execute what was in my heart. And so, but I think that, you know, this is such a powerful thing, but it's also, I'm really motivated because people are so deceived of what really leads to meaning, what leads to success, what truly leads to high level execution and performance. And so, you know, I really love having the chance to debunk those myths because I think they're really detrimental not only to performance, but to contented living as well.
Yep. Yeah, I 100% agree. Something else that I want to reference and talk with you about, you mentioned reflection now multiple times and the importance of that. So and you've talked about pause several times. So let's put it in context a little bit. Those that know us know what E plus R equals O is. Those that are listening to this podcast for the first time may not know. So we work off of a simple system, E plus R equals O, which is event plus response equals outcome. And the core message is you don't control events. You don't directly control outcomes, but you always have control over how you choose to respond. And the outcome that you get is determined by the response that you choose. The success isn't about the E, success is about the R, which is why we call it the R factor. And the step number one, the first discipline in applying E plus R equals O to your life, whether you're a coach or a player, whether you're a manager or a supervisor, a mom or a dad, husband or a wife, no matter what, the first skill, the first discipline is press pause. And the purpose of pressing pause is clarity. Now, the other piece to this is there's 3 pause points. There's one before the E, which is proactive. There's one between the E and the R, which is situational. Then there's this third one, which is after the O, and that's reflective, where you look back and here. And what I'm referencing here, Cori, is you talk about journaling. Mm-hmm. So what I want to talk about is this notion or this discipline or this habit of using E plus R equals O and a journal and a reflective pause to look back over a day or look back over a week and say, okay, this past week, these events happened. I chose these responses and my response produced that outcome.
Yeah.
What did I learn about myself? What do I learn about myself in situations like that? And I always encourage people whenever I teach this, ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do that I want to repeat because it worked well? What did I do that I did okay, but I need to be better? I want to enhance that. What did I do that I probably don't want to do again? I'm going to get rid of that one. Mm-hmm. So you reflect back and what I want to repeat, what I want to enhance, and what I want to eliminate. Mm-hmm. Is that a form of what you do? Is that resonate?
Yeah, it is. But as you were telling that, I was being convicted because last Saturday I just did absolute cruddy job of a situation happened. And actually, you know, you were talking about people getting, you know, rewarded. And, you know, I was someone, a colleague of mine that was, you know, being rewarded for the wrong things, in my opinion. And it was frustrating and I reacted emotionally and I didn't press pause. And I got myself, I was just reactionary and I didn't do the R factor steps, starting with pressing pause and gaining clarity. And the detriment to that did to my day, to the people I was around, to my next right choices or wrong choices in my case. It's just so pivotal. I mean, it's such a, and as you were saying that, I was thinking, dang it, you know, but part of my reflection is going back, okay, that really wasn't good. And I probably as a leader, I'm better at it with our staff. We actually build that into the rhythms of our staff meetings. So what went well is a constant thing that we ask, or we also call it counting the victories. How do we live out our mission this week in different areas of the program? And then we also say, okay, how are we going to move the needle this week, meaning growth, and then look back of just, what could we have done better? Where did we fall short in some ways? But I think I don't probably do that as well, even as you're talking about that in my own pause. I try to one day a week really spend an extended time. What I described earlier was sort of get my day started, takes 20, maybe 30 minutes to do that for me. And, but I try once a week to really have more of an extended time of reflection, but I don't think I do it have the same purpose and cadence. And I think it would do me well to do that, because I think that I would develop some reflection and awareness that maybe I don't have.
Yep. Well, I would encourage you, if you don't use ERO in your reflection, and think of it just in terms of not just, but in addition to the other reflection that you do is self-reflection, use ERO. What events happened? How did I respond? What outcomes were produced? Mm-hmm. And that's really helpful because it's a structured way of evaluating what happened. And because here's the other thing, pretty good chance a lot of those events are going to happen again.
Right. Totally. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the chances are, because I say this all the time, learning is all about experience, and learning aren't the same thing. We always have experiences, but we don't always learn from them. And the key to learning from an experience is pressing pause and reflecting. So it's an interesting, everyone has experiences, not everyone learns.
Right. That's true.
And
you think about that in coaching or leadership or business or education, that you can see that in your students and your employees and in your players and athletes that, we're all experiencing things. But as a leader, trying to get other people then also to learn and adjust, or, you always talk about mistakes are just feedback, right? Instead of, I'm really processing that with your people. But it has to happen. You also say that it's not going to happen through you until it happens in you. And so, and I really want to do the work in me first before I even try to teach well.
Well, I think that all the more reason then, again, you underscored another reason why, if you're in a position of leadership, you better have a cadence of self-reflection. Mm-hmm. And it's very dangerous to get rolling with the doing and the activity and the execution and the doing the job and leading and not stopping and taking care of self. I think of because I'm doing a lot of writing right now in our next version of Lead Now. In fact, I think we're going to change the name to it. We're going to be updating the workbook, but I'm doing a lot of writing and reflecting on what is character, mm-hmm. and what are the attributes of character. And of course, it's Greek. The word means stamp or engrave. Mm. Literally, it means to stamp or engrave. And so the intent of the word is you engrave or stamp on your heart, on your life, a certain set of beliefs and behaviors. And you're the one that does the stamping. I always make the statement, talent is a gift, character is a choice. Mm-hmm. But you don't get to say how much or how little talent you were born with. You do get to say what characteristics you choose to engrave in your life. Mm-hmm. And Aristotle wrote, the Nicomachean Ethics, and in there he said, people don't act rightly because they have character. They have character because they act rightly. Mm. You are what you repeatedly do. Mm-hmm. That statement was, you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act; it's a habit. You are people attribute that to Vince Lombardi. Sadly, Lombardi. That's Aristotle.
Right.
That's Aristotle. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm thinking about in terms of, all right, I'm going to become I even use the phrase ABC, always building character. Mm-hmm. Why? Because I'm always choosing.
Yeah.
And if I choose discipline, I'm building a strong character. If I'm choosing default, I'm not. So that to reflect back and say, last week, those events took place. I chose certain things, and I produced an outcome because of my choice. And then I'm not going to blame the E. I'm going to own myself. What did last week tell me about my character? Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it's huge. And I just think that's why I love the R factor, is it applies to everything. And our team even did a skit about you because they were imitating me after you come. And they were, if you come, like I get all revved up again and I'm like, I can apply a little bit better here, a little bit. So they did a skit imitating me after you leave, all these things. But the other day during
please tell me, did you video that? Did it get videoed?
Probably somewhere. I'm choosing to try to let it get in the archives, but I'll get someone to give it to you. It's
I want to see a video of the UCLA women's basketball team mimicking you, mimicking me. I want to see that video.
It's like every coined word that you can possibly imagine in about a 2.5-minute segments, from at the edge to, discipline and default to all the different things. It's hilarious. That's hilarious. But that's the other thing I think is so great about behaviors we repeatedly do is that even in the joking, you're reinforcing behavior. Yes. And even the other day, a couple of weeks ago, I was playing ping pong and someone videotaped me and I was like, and Shannon on my staff videotaped and then posted it on our team group me. And the next, immediately, coach needs to work on her R. I think her R is a little weak, whatever else. And, but you know what, I celebrate that because even in that we are reinforcing a system of beliefs. And, and I think that's really what character, that's stamping on your heart more and more of the things that you want. And so I think that's why it's so important. I think not only do not most people know their why, but I don't think most people are really sure of what they want their character to be. And what do they really want to stamp on their heart? What is it that is most important for them to do that? And then building a system of behaviors that reinforce that stamp that continuously. I think that if someone doesn't walk you through that process, I think that's really hard and most people don't do it.
No, they don't. And I'm 100% agree with you, which is why in our leadership training and coaching and consulting, we ask and challenge people to do what you just said on the stop, slow down. We even have a thing called a character blueprint that we have people fill out. What are your core beliefs? And those who have heard me, they know that I strongly love to reinforce the meaning of the word core. The word core is Latin for heart. That means heart. And so a core value means a value that resides on your heart.
Right.
Not on a poster, not on a piece of paper. And I said this to a group the other day. No, there's a critical path to it. So first you write it down on a piece of paper. And then if you're serious, it goes from your paper to your head. Then if you're really serious, it goes from your head to your heart. So it doesn't just jump onto your heart. So first you write it down to clarify. I think I believe in, and then you write them down.
Yeah.
Work with them. Okay. Then you get to a spot where it goes from paper to concept, and then from concept to core.
But then also people have this expectation, okay, if I do that, we're going to have this perfect trajectory of just going up, 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 up. And then we get derailed and then it's like, screw it. That's like me trying to lose weight.
Mistakes or feedback.
Right. Exactly. But we don't feel that way. I think especially if you have a perfectionist mindset, you go, oh, forget it. Or it's like when I'm trying to lose weight, if I say I'm not going to have any cookies and I have one cookie, I was like, oh, screw it. I broke the diet. I might as well just have 10, I think that's what we do sometimes when we're trying to take that from writing it down on the paper to going to our head, going to our heart. It's not going to be perfect, and you're going to have to refocus, and we're going to have to come back to, okay, what feedback did that give me? And I didn't like that outcome on that trajectory. What is it about my R that I need to look at? And I think, if I don't have people around me, or I don't have a system to regroup on that, I get defeated really quickly and I lose hope that it can actually happen for me.
Yeah. And it is about progress, not perfection. And we've talked slow, small, daily, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
All development, all growth, all improvement, all change happens slow, small, daily. And I think we get into trouble because we live in a microwave society where we want everything really, really fast. And things don't happen. They don't happen fast, big, and right now. They just don't. And of all the things that happen slow, small, daily, character formation is probably the thing that's slowest, smallest, and but requires that daily. It's that 1%, and since it's slow, small, daily, it means you don't necessarily see the results right away, right? I mean, it's just but you can't. That's why accountability is so important, and support. Having people in your life, noticers and truth tellers who support you and who are for you and who invest in you. And that's, that's why at the end of the day, my respect for coaches and what you all do for young people, for student athletes, and particularly coaches like you, Cori, who have a deep commitment to the whole person. I mean, I know what you think, I know what you believe, I know what your heartbeat is. And when you recruit a young lady to come to UCLA and play on your team, you're looking at you want to shape that young woman for life. And you're not, it's not just about scoring points or playing defense. It's about shaping this person, and you view your program as this environment to stamp, help to equip the young people with, and you require them to own it. It's that you don't do it for them. That's the other thing that's cool. You give them the tools,
I don't think it works any other way. I just think it's so short-lived. If I try to just do it down to them and they don't own it and have involvement in it, it's just very short-lived and very shallow, and I think, there's performance teams in business, and then there's programs and cultures. And, in sports, I think it's, there are teams and then there are programs. And we want to be a program that's sort of an incubator for that kind of thinking and that kind of character development. And, I had this, and I think I've told you this story before, and I tell it all the time, and every time it gets me, but it really encapsulates what we're trying to accomplish here. But I think what most of us want to accomplish in our lives is, my 4th day on the job here at UCLA. And remember, I had met a lot of Coach Wooden's alumni, but I had never met this guy named John Vallely. And they say, hey, you need to, meet with this guy. He's like, does Dribble for the Cure, which is a community service thing that we're involved with at UCLA. Well, I don't have a staff hired. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And I'm like, do I have to? And like, yeah, you got it, just for a second. I said, okay. So he walks into my office and sits across from the table from me and barely introduces himself. And he says, I've been married 38 years because of what Coach Wooden taught me. I've started 3 successful businesses because of what Coach Wooden taught me. I've conquered cancer 3 times because of the strength Coach Wooden gave me. And then he really got me. He said, I survived the death of my 12-year-old daughter because of the way Coach Wooden loved me. Oof. And I'm sitting there, and then he pretty much says, hey, welcome to the family. I'll see you at Dribble for the Cure, and walks out. And I'm like, who is this guy? So I run over to my computer and I type in his name, and I find out that he was the starting guard on 2 of Coach Wooden's national championship teams, and he played 8 years in the NBA. But he didn't even mention it because it paled in comparison to the man he became. And that, to me, has formed sort of my mission, is how many people, oh, by the way, yeah, we won a national champ. By the way, I made the WNBA, or I went to the Olympics. But it pales in comparison to the person I became from the inside out. And that there would be ownership and pride and habits and things that went from that paper to the head and to the heart. And if we can create as many John Vallely stories as we can through sport, that's the true desire of my heart. Wow.
That's incredible. I mean, you've told me this story before. I just feel like I just heard it for the first time again.
It blows me away pretty much every time I tell it. So it's a good marker for me to, as it rolls off my tongue, to be like, am I living that?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. What an incredible motivation for all of us, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
To leave that legacy on the lives of people. I'm going to finish with this. What mistakes do you think coaches make? What are the big mistakes that coaches make? Or leaders, period. I mean, it doesn't have to be a coach and athletic program, but there are a lot of people today, Cori, who have positions of leadership. There are a lot of people out there that have a title. They've got an office, a title, authority that comes with it, and they're in charge of a group, small, large, whatever. What are you seeing out there? Because you've been at this a while. What do you see mistakes leaders are making?
Well, I think you already said one of them is that I think that we're going too fast. I think there's a great book by John Mark Comer called The Relentless Elimination of Hurry. It has been very impactful in my life, and how so many mistakes. And for me, it also has been a marker for my spiritual life as well. But I think we are going way too fast. And, people have been talking about going back to normal after COVID. That's one thing I don't want to go back to normal to is, I just think we can't be present. We can't make good decisions. We can't do those other things when we're always in a hurry. Yep. I think the other, I think we are too results driven. And let me put it this way. I am too results driven. And I think that's a continual thing I need to watch in my life, because my default is that I am driven and I will find a way and to get the results, the outcome that I want. And sometimes it's not by good reflection and examining my R. Sometimes I just am going to barrel through at the consequence of maybe other people around me or who knows. But I think when you're too driven by results, that's what happens.
But you're not suggesting results don't matter.
Not at all. I don't think it means lowering the standard at all. I think results matter a lot, but I think the focus and where the energy is put first, where the prioritization happens. I think that's a great myth, is that because if you are process oriented, that you have less value or the standard is lower. And that's not the case. It's actually the opposite. But I have found just in my own heart, that, and just, I'm not married. God hasn't brought me a husband yet, but I've looked at families, all the time. And I think sometimes our professional results, we lose out on the things that we say are so most important. And I know that even with my own family, is that sometimes when I get that out of whack, when I go back to what I said earlier about Coach Wooden creating a perfect day to give to somebody else without any expectation of anything in return. And when you really have that mindset to give and to invest and to be process oriented and to have your day reflect your priorities, your level of excellence, the way you treat people, the product, it takes care of itself. I think Bill Walsh in his book, I can't remember the name of the book, but he talks about building the 49ers when they were at their peak and how much he had to trust that it was in the pursuit of, it was in the quest, it was in the process, and handling that process. So I just think that's a mistake that, it doesn't make you any less competitive as a coach to be process oriented. It doesn't make you, but maybe you define competition differently or maybe in a different order. I think that would be my other one. And, I think the hurry, being product versus process oriented, I think those would be the biggest ones. And I think that probably what you said earlier about really knowing your why, I think so many of us, and myself included, can get caught up on, how it defines our identity and, just why, but do my actions think that it's my identity, or do my actions say that it's my purpose, and I think really understanding your why creates a balance. And, John Gordon always says that people don't get burnt out because they're doing too much. They get burnt out because they forgot their why.
Yeah. And
I have found that to be true. It's a way bigger drain when I'm just on the hamster wheel and I'm not really realizing why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I would underscore what you just said as we wrap this up, that I see a lot of people, not even just leaders, just people, period. Athletes do this all the time. Parents do this all the time. Children do this all the time, as they put their identity into their activity rather than express their identity through their activity. And I just see people, I tell this to business people all the time. I tell this to athletic, to pro athletes and to college athletes and to coaches. Don't attach your identity to what you do. You are who you are, and you express who you are through what you do. And if you ever allow, your identity isn't UCLA women's basketball coach. You're Cori Close, and you have a role there, and you express who you are through that role.
It's interesting. We make our players write that down before they leave the gym every day. They have to write at the top of the page, basketball is what I do. It is not who I am.
Oh, I love that.
Then they have to write down the definition of a growth mindset. Everything that happens to me today is an opportunity to learn and grow. And then they write 10 things that went well in practice before they can leave the gym.
That's awesome.
And,
so go back. I want to make sure people hear that. You make them write down, basketball is what I do. It's not who I am.
Yep. Every day at the top of we call it our What Went Well journal. And it literally takes them under 5 minutes. We actually put it on the clock, and they have to write, basketball is what I do. It is not who I am. And then everything that happens to me today is an opportunity to learn and grow. And these are 10 things that were under my control that went well today. And we practice in the morning. So we're trying to set their mind, because left to our own devices, what do? We replay all the mistakes. We let our emotions, sort of overwhelm us. And so we literally have tried to reshape and rewire how we're looking at that experience before we go on to the rest of our day. Because I know that especially women, I think we don't think, no offense, Tim, but women usually don't think they're as good as they are, and men usually think they're better than they are in sports. So I'm trying to rewire that a little bit.
Well, I working with both men's and women's sports, I think you're right on target with that. So,
thank you,
Cori, this has been unbelievable. I value our friendship. I value the opportunity to serve and support you and your staff and your team. I look forward to the next time we get together. I don't know when that will be because of all this COVID stuff, but it's always great to be back on campus, and particularly to be purposeful to be there is to help you guys on your journey. But I deeply respect what you've built and are building, and it's a joy working with you.
Well, I love you as my friend and my brother. And, it's interesting when Joshua Medcalf, he was our director of mental training, and he was sort of going in a different direction. He said, the people that I would start following if I were you is, Tim Kight and Brian Kight. And he's the one that just had me start following you.
Really?
And
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. He's the one that made me start following you. And he said, I think you're going to learn something. And I think they could be really good.
By the way, I'm a Joshua Medcalf fan, so I didn't know that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, he was the one who started that, but little did I know that it would be such an important framework of how we build, and Focus 3 it really has been imprinted into my mind and into my heart, and so it's been really impactful. But it wouldn't be as impactful if I didn't have so much love and respect, both for you and your wife, but also BK as well, and just say thank you for impacting the way that we're doing what we're doing. And you've impacted me personally as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks, Cori.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Well, I really enjoyed that conversation with Cori. I love her heart. I love her commitment to being a teacher. I love her commitment to serving. And I hope you picked up that what drives Cori, what's in her heart, she said, is she wants to impact people. And I've worked closely with her now for a couple of years and with the team, and been able to see up close and personal this deep commitment that Cori and her staff have to developing the whole student athlete. And I watch, frankly, I'm tremendously impressed and motivated, energized by the commitment that Cori and her staff have to pouring their hearts into the young ladies at UCLA women's basketball. A lot of lessons there for all of us. I think the notion of and the reality, the discipline necessary to know who you are, know what belief system, to know what kind of a character you want to have, you want to bring to coaching or to leadership, and that the people that you lead experience what you say, they experience how you say it, they experience why. If you're a coach, your athletes experience what you coach, they experience how you coach, they experience why you coach. And it's critical for all of us as leaders, as coaches, wherever we are in business and education and in athletics, to stop on a regular basis, have a cadence of time alone, silence and reflection, and really begin to develop that inner self, to do the inner work that allows us to be excellent in our outer work. And this idea of, and this process of writing down your core values on a piece of paper, and then grasping them in your mind and being conceptually sound, and then inscribing them on your heart. That's that process of character formation. It's powerful. Now go do the work.